So before we get into this video, I want to say, where the hell is Van? I mean, we heard that this season was going to focus a lot more on her character. She has been pushed to the side in the previous seasons, but we're halfway through with this season and we still barely have been scratching the surface on what her character's been up to or what the hell's going on. So hopefully in the next 4 episodes or 5, I believe, we can definitely get some more insight on her. But let's get right into this episode. So if you haven't already, subscribe, turn on the notification bell. I'm covering all the episodes of Atlanta, trying to cover them faster for y'all. So definitely subscribe, turn on the notification bell so you know when those videos drop. But let's get right into this one. So pretty much I made a theory video on Socks yesterday, and I was talking about what exactly he could be up to and all of that. No Socks this episode, but we'll see in the next episode if we see him. It looks like some time has passed since that phone incident, and now Paperboy has been sort of the subject of a campaign for this fashion house that did some pretty racist shit. So they pretty much made a t-shirt that said Central Park 5. Now, whether they were clueless, ignorant, or just didn't care about what that actually means, who knows? They don't really suggest, and I think that this is definitely mirroring that Coolest Monkey in the Jungle situation we saw a couple of years ago. And so pretty much Paperboy now has been asked to join a board. And so the fashion house has sort of gotten people on the board to sort of show themselves that they're not racist and all of that. Of course, they're just using this in order for themselves to come off squeaky clean off of this. Paperboy is new to this, so he doesn't realize he's not going to get paid for it or anything like that, but they pretty much offer him incentives such as clothes, things like that, even though they say he's kind of pushing it, but still, he's like, yeah, I'm going to do this. Earn is pretty much like, I don't know if this is such a good idea and all of that, which he's like, yeah, but you know, what else am I going to do right now? So eventually, as he does get onto this board, we see him and some other of the influencers, activists as they call them, get on stage there. And one of the first questions that is led is, do we think that this is going to mean racism is over? Of course, it's not. And Paperboy blatantly says that as well. When the other influencer stops him, Khalil, and sort of gives an answer that it'll be done in 2024. And everybody cheers and applauds there. Now, Khalil had told Paperboy from the beginning that this is not a new thing he's doing. He's been apologizing for white people for a long time now, and it's a pretty good gig. So as we find out, a lot of the other influencers, activists that are there also have been getting bribes to do this for the fashion house and other companies, clients, all of that, to go around and be the apologist for them and sort of say that change is coming, that it's going to be here. And of course, Paperboy, and as we see in the world today, a lot of that is just bullshit, right? It's just performative and it doesn't really do much. And I think that that was one of the things that the episode was really pointing towards, is that a lot of activists that are at the top of the game and are like out there on social media and everything is performative. We don't really see much of the grassroots movement that are actually doing the real changes on the ground level and really getting people the help they need and resources and all of that. A lot of the other ones have become sort of celebrities that just talk about it a lot and most of the time don't do much except just be performative, which I think this episode was really touching on a lot. And so we see that a lot of these activists here also funnel money into nonprofits, but it's really going towards them. And that was one of the things that Paperboy was like, that ain't right and all of that. We need to get people to get like mobilized, like Black communities being able to put that money into their own communities and have them flourish and have that money going through them. And that's like how you build generational wealth. Of course, he does come up with a like act performance to do like a commercial or whatever it is, and they run with it in the fashion house. All lives matter, as we would say, right? They pretty much don't have anything to do with the Black community or any of that. They put different people in there and pretty much just a cringy commercial that had nothing to do with the original idea that Paperboy had for. He pretty much storms into the office after this and is just pissed off about it. Khalil pulls them to the side and he's like, do you really think that a company like them or any company would have run your ad when they want you to depend on them and they don't want like your own community to flourish, because then you won't depend on them. And the only way you're going to get change is if you like make your own nonprofit, get the money, and then do whatever you want with it there. It doesn't seem that Khalil's doing much with his own nonprofit, but the idea still sticks without Paperboy that he has to do something. I think that Paperboy is really seeing a different light to all of the celebrity in this season. I think that's one of the big things going on here. I'm going to go back to the other episodes in a video next week, and I really want to focus on what that transformation Paperboy has been going through with celebrity and all of that. So definitely stay tuned for that video before the next episode. Now, where Paperboy, like the whole situation, this episode dealt with racism, performative activism, fashion culture toxicity towards POCs. I think Darius really nails it into gentrification. Darius eventually in this episode meets up with a woman who is like working at the fashion house or whatever, and she's pretty much a person that's out there to do catering, things like that, get food for everybody. And she asks Darius where does he want to go exactly, to which he responds, Nigerian food. Eventually go to this Nigerian restaurant, and while she's there, she's pretty much like googly-eyed about everything, trying to figure out what everything is, and it turns into not appreciation but appropriation, as she's really trying to hone in on this and say that there's a ton of money to be made with this. And then when Darius comes back to the place a couple of days later, I assume, the woman has now bought out the place. And then the old owner's gone. She doesn't care what happened to the owner or what's going on there. And she has opened her own Nigerian restaurant. This white woman named Karen. And yeah, Karen. Very pseudo name here. And she's pretty much just selling Nigerian bowls, as she says. So very much so a message about gentrification and what happens with it. And Darius figures out that this is wrong. This isn't the way to do things. And it was just a very, very touching moment Darius has as he's just sitting there reflecting on the old store that had just shut down, and seeing the woman's new store that's just there, selling the Nigerian bowls as a white woman. Now, we do eventually get Van and Earn in this episode, but for a little bit, we don't really get much information on what has happening with Van. We do get a little where this white woman's accusing her of stealing, and it turns into a whole situation where the woman's holding her down and all of that. The hotel, however, where Earn and Van are at, does come to the rescue for them, and they eventually try to make things right with them. And the episode pretty much ends there. There's not much more else going on here. We don't know exactly what's happening with Van, so hopefully in the next episodes we can really get some more information on that. As they said, this season was going to focus a little bit more on her, so hopefully we do see that. But like I said, this episode really heavily talked about the performative activism. We see a lot happening, and that's what people on social media and all of this that do claim to be activists, but at the end of the day really aren't doing much except building their own platform and their own organizations, but not really putting it back into the communities that they say they're trying to help as well. And I think a lot of this season also has touched upon like performative activism we see as well. So definitely something to talk about in the next video I want to do for the whole season, like so far, because we're like halfway through with it. Also very important is gentrification as well, in cultural appropriation that we see Karen do with the Nigerian food, which is something that we do see a lot, where we see these restaurants that deal with a lot of POC food, all of that don't really have the POCs at the head of it at all, and for the most part sometimes not even in the kitchen, so you don't get those flavors or any of that special touch that they can bring to it. And the gentrification that we've been seeing, I mean, across the country is insane, where you see these like lower income neighborhoods eventually get like completely taken over, and we see those apartments, those homes being built up, and then all of the food, the culture and all of that completely erased, but it's sort of tried to bring back by the gentrifiers, and it ain't the same at all. And we know this with several types of food. It's not the same, and the food's always like prices raised up, and the neighborhood's just not the same at all. So I think this episode really touched upon that, what it was, especially with adding raisins to the bowls. And yeah, that was the first clue that Darius heard, where he was just like, yeah. Anyways, we could definitely talk more about that in another video as well that I will be doing, like I said, next week, going over more of the themes that this season has explored and really driving home what the season has been all about, which I think for the most part is changes that are not always good to the community, and the community always waiting for like these activists and these people at top organizations to really do something different. But at the end of the day, I think money is always the root of all evil, as money does change like the initial vision that they had, and then everybody else in the ground floor doesn't see this money at all, and it's just staying up here. So definitely a deep message here. So my camera just died. But anyways, let me know your thoughts and opinions on this episode. What do you think about it? And if you haven't already subscribe to the channel. We are on the road to 21,000 subscribers, less than 400 away. So super excited for that. As always, that is going to do it for me. Stay tuned for my video on the other themes that are explored this season coming out next week. Make sure that notification bell is turned on so you know when that drops. I'll see all of you next time. Stay safe, stay positive.